Most of what you're chasing right now was decided for you before you turned 12. The version of success you're grinding toward, the one keeping you up at night, probably belongs to someone else entirely. And the strangest part is how confident you feel that it's yours. That confidence is the trap. Think about the first time you heard the word successful applied to a real person, a relative, a neighbor, someone your parents pointed to with that specific tone of voice. You were maybe 7 or 8. You didn't analyze the moment. You absorbed it the way kids absorb everything, completely uncritically, like a sponge dropped in water. That person had a big house, or a specific job title, or drove a certain car. And somewhere in your developing brain, a template locked into place. Success looks like that. The template hardened over years. Every report card comment, every dinner table conversation about so-and-so's kid getting into a good school, every offhand remark about money, each one added another layer. By the time you were old enough to choose your own goals, the mold was already set. You were choosing from a menu someone else wrote. And that menu follows you into adulthood with disturbing precision. Researchers at the University of Rochester spent years studying what drives people's goal setting. They separated goals into 2 categories: intrinsic ones like personal growth, genuine connection, and contribution, versus extrinsic ones like wealth, status, and image. The people pursuing extrinsic goals reported higher anxiety, more depression, and lower life satisfaction, even when they achieved what they set out to achieve. Read that trajectory again. They won, and winning made them feel worse. So why would anyone pursue goals that make them miserable? Because those goals feel like their own. The adoption happens so early that questioning them feels like questioning your identity. Asking, "Do I actually want this?" triggers the same discomfort as asking, "Am I actually me?" Your brain treats inherited goals and authentic desires as the same category. It files them in the same drawer. This is where the machinery gets interesting. Every culture runs on a shared story about what a good life looks like. In some places it's home ownership, in others it's academic prestige, in others it's entrepreneurial wealth. The story shifts by geography, by decade, by social class. But the mechanism stays identical. The story gets inside you before you develop the cognitive tools to evaluate it. You internalize the scoreboard before you learn there are other games. Consider 2 kids growing up on the same street. One has parents who measure everything in financial terms: salary, property value, retirement accounts. The other has parents who measure everything in creative output: books read, instruments played, projects built. Both kids grow up believing they independently chose their values, both would defend those values passionately, and both are largely running programs installed during childhood. The financial kid becomes an investment banker, hits every target, corner office by 35, and feels a persistent hollow sensation she can't explain, because the template she's fulfilling was her father's definition of enough, and enough keeps moving. The creative kid becomes a musician, plays in bands for a decade, loves the work, then hits 30 and suddenly feels like a failure, because the financial kid's scoreboard leaked in through social media, through college reunions, through that specific look relatives give when they ask, "So what are you doing now?" The banker feels empty, fulfilling inherited goals. The musician feels ashamed, abandoning them. Same mechanism, working from opposite ends. So how do you tell the difference between a goal you chose and a goal that was chosen for you? There's a test, and it's uncomfortable. Strip away every external reward. No one will know you achieved it. No one will praise you. No one will be impressed. Your social media stays silent. Your parents never find out. Would you still want it? Would you still wake up early for it? Would the process itself pull you forward even without an audience? If the answer is yes, the goal is probably yours. If the answer is a hesitant, well, you just found someone else's fingerprints on your ambition. The psychologist Ken Sheldon calls these self-concordant goals, goals that align with your genuine interests and values rather than with pressure, guilt, or inherited expectations. His research found that people pursuing self-concordant goals put in more sustained effort, experienced more satisfaction during the process, and felt better even when progress was slow. The goal itself was energizing because it matched something real inside them. Goals that lack self-concordance drain you. They require willpower instead of generating motivation. Every Monday morning feels like pushing a boulder uphill because you're spending energy fighting the mismatch between what you're doing and what actually matters to you. You attribute the exhaustion to the difficulty of the work. The work might be fine, the misalignment is what's heavy. And here's where it gets personal in a way most people avoid thinking about. Your current job, your relationship structure, the city you live in, the hobbies you maintain, the way you spend your weekends. How much of that architecture was built around authentic desire, and how much was built around avoiding someone's disappointment, a parent's, a partner's, a version of yourself that formed at 19 and still somehow holds veto power over your decisions at 37? Most people construct entire lives around avoiding a feeling. The feeling of being seen as lazy, or unambitious, or different, or difficult. The construction is so elaborate, so well maintained, that it becomes invisible. You furnished the cage, you painted the walls. You hung pictures, and now it looks so much like home that the idea of leaving feels like the threat, when staying is what's actually costing you. The sociologist Pierre Bourdieu had a term for this kind of invisible inheritance. He called it habitus, the set of dispositions, tastes, and expectations you absorb from your social environment, which then feel like personal preferences. You think you prefer classical music, or craft beer, or minimalist apartments, or ambitious partners. Some of those preferences are genuine, and some are habitus wearing the mask of choice. Separating the two is the real work. And it takes more than a weekend journaling retreat. Start with friction. Authentic goals create a specific kind of friction, the kind that feels like growth. Inherited goals create a different kind, the kind that feels like obligation. Growth friction pulls you forward even when it's hard. You stay up late because you're absorbed, because something in the work itself lights up. Obligation friction pushes you forward with guilt and comparison. You stay up late because you're afraid of falling behind, afraid of what it means if you stop. The sensations are different in your body. Growth feels like tension with curiosity underneath it. Obligation feels like tension with dread underneath it. Same surface, different floor. Pay attention to your daydreams. They're diagnostic. When your mind wanders in a boring meeting, where does it go? The answer reveals what your brain considers worth simulating when no one's watching. If you're a lawyer daydreaming about woodworking, that signal has content. If you're daydreaming about being a more successful lawyer, look closer. Is that aspiration yours, or is it the template trying to optimize itself? Pay attention to your envy too. Envy is precise. You don't envy everyone who has more than you. You envy specific people doing specific things. That specificity is data. It points at something you want but haven't admitted to yourself, usually because admitting it would require dismantling something you already built. The dismantling is what stops most people. They do the self-examination. They realize the template doesn't fit. And then they look at the mortgage, the career trajectory, the expectations they've set with everyone around them, and they put the inside back in the drawer. Knowing the cage is a cage doesn't automatically open the door. It just makes the cage less comfortable. But discomfort is a better starting position than numbness. Numbness keeps the system running indefinitely. Discomfort is the friction that precedes every genuine change. The people who redesign their lives at 40, at 50, at 65, they all describe the same sequence: a growing sense that something was off, followed by years of ignoring it, followed by a moment where the cost of staying exceeded the fear of leaving. The cost is always time. Every year spent optimizing someone else's scoreboard is a year subtracted from the one life where your actual preferences exist. The math is simple. The execution requires something harder than discipline. It requires honesty about which voice in your head is actually yours. You might find when you listen carefully that the voice is quieter than you expected. It's been talking under the noise of expectations for decades. It sounds less like ambition and more like a question. Something along the lines of, "What if I just?" followed by the thing you dismiss every time it surfaces. That dismissal has a history, and the history has someone else's name on it.